Tonight, several developing stories as we come on. Powerful and deadly winds slam the east, power outages, trees on homes, and the winds now coming tonight. Also news coming in, a deadly bus accident colliding with a tractor trailer. Multiple adults and children did not survive this. And the passenger jet that suddenly dropped in midair, passengers thrown in the cabin. First tonight, more than 50 million Americans on alert at this hour. Philadelphia to New York to Boston. Wind gusts reaching 50 miles per hour, and the winds have turned deadly now. A tree down on a home, nearly 4,000 flights canceled or delayed. Rob Marciano with what's coming next. The horrific crash, word coming in of that school bus into a tractor trailer in the oncoming lane. Several people dead tonight, including children. The terrifying moments in the air, a Boeing passenger jet, passengers saying there was a sudden drop and that many were thrown around the cabin. Reports of panels dislodged in the ceiling, at least 50 people hurt. The alarming images coming out of Haiti tonight, the U.S. Embassy evacuating American staffers before the sun came up. The Secretary of State now in the region tonight. The stark warning on Capitol Hill today, America's intelligence chiefs warning of the most troubling global threats, among them China and the influence over the U.S. election. Here in the U.S., the danger on our own border. And the warning about Ukraine if the U.S. does not help, where Russia is getting its weapons. The race for the White House tonight, what former President Trump said today about Social Security and Medicare, about entitlements. President Biden pouncing. Meanwhile, the growing rift tonight between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Biden. Netanyahu now pushing back after what President Biden called a red line and what Biden said just moments ago. Tonight, Princess Catherine, the photo with her children suddenly pulled by news agencies saying the photo had been doctored. Then the apology from Princess Kate. So why doesn't the royal family release the original? It's leading to even more questions tonight after Catherine's mystery surgery. Back here in the U.S., the boater attacked by a crocodile, airlifted to the hospital. College basketball star Caitlin Clark and her new triumph tonight. At the Oscars, the big night, and what we didn't know about Ken's song.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to start another week with all of you at home. We do begin tonight with the dangerous winds, and they've now turned deadly. Trees down, power outages, and more wind coming. More than 50 million Americans in the Northeast under wind alerts at this hour. Washington, D.C., New York City, and Boston all in the path. More than 4,000 flights canceled or delayed. And take a look at this map. These high wind numbers across the Northeast. Gusts between 40 and 50 miles an hour. The winds uprooting a massive tree in Brooklyn, New York, crushing a car near Prospect Park. This home in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, destroyed by a fallen tree, killing a person who was trapped inside. These winds are the tail end of a system that slammed the east over the weekend. An EF2 tornado, winds 130 miles an hour, ripping through Brantley County, Georgia. It's about 40 miles west of Brunswick. Onshore winds flooding areas along the East Coast. This is Hampton, New Hampshire, one of those areas underwater tonight. A Coast Guard crew braving rough waters. This is off Bass Harbor, Maine, rushing a patient to emergency care. This is not done yet, so let's get right to senior meteorologist Rob Marciano timing it out for us. Hey, Rob.
Hi, David. This thing really wound up in a hurry yesterday. Continue to strengthen today and seemingly in no hurry to get out to sea. The low itself remains over Nova Scotia. We've got wind advisories, most of which will remain up through the midnight hour, and that low will continue to wrap around winds well towards daybreak tomorrow. 30, 40-mile-per-hour winds will continue, and it will still be windy in the morning. The ground's saturated still, so you'll probably see more in the way of trees coming down a little bit on the dicey side. Still windy in the Midwest as well, down to the Texas Panhandle, where they had that massive Texas fire, the biggest on history there. Red flag warnings are up tomorrow, and we likely see critical fire danger through much of the week. Here in the east, the next 4 to 8 hours could be on the dangerous side. David?
We appreciate the warning. Rob Marciano leading us off here. Rob, thank you. We turn now to that horrific crash. There is news coming in tonight of an awful crash, a collision between a school bus and a tractor trailer. Both vehicles erupting into flames. Both drivers were killed, along with 3 children on that bus. ABC's Alex Presha tonight with what authorities have just now revealed.
Tonight, a horrific crash scene along this Illinois highway after a semi-truck collided with a school bus, killing 5 people, including all 3 preschool-aged children on board.
Route 24 in front of Scripps Park, school bus semi-accident. At least 1 vehicle on fire.
It happened about 60 miles west of Springfield. Police say just after 11:30 this morning, the bus crossed the line into oncoming traffic and then into the path of that truck hauling sand.
The bus was traveling west on Route 24. and for an unknown reason crossed over into the eastbound lanes in front of the semi-truck. Both vehicles became engulfed in flames.
Both drivers were also killed. The school bus seen here barely recognizable.
When you have loss of lives like this, it's devastating. It's quite a tragedy.
David, tonight authorities were asked if drugs or alcohol played a role in this crash. Frankly, they can't answer that yet. This investigation is just getting started. David?
We're thinking about those families tonight. Alex, thank you. Now to the terrifying midair scare on a Boeing passenger jet. The sudden drop on board the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Some passengers thrown in the cabin. At least 50 passengers and crew were injured in this. The flight from Australia to New Zealand. Tonight, here are the images. And just a short time ago, the airline calling it a technical incident. Here's Trevor Ault.
Tonight, video circulating online capturing the terror aboard a LATAM Airlines flight after passengers and crew were sent flying to the ceiling.
It felt more like an earthquake rather than turbulence, but it was just like the worst form of turbulence.
More than halfway through the 3-hour trip from Sydney, Australia to Auckland, New Zealand, passengers saying flight LA 800 seemed to suddenly drop. Many of the 272 on board tossed around the cabin of the Boeing 787 Dreamliner.
I saw cut heads, a few neck braces being applied, people being patched up with cuts and bruises.
At least 50 passengers and crew needing treatment for injuries, more than a dozen taken to the hospital. Lucas Elwood and others helping this seriously injured person in the aisle.
Oh, everyone was terrified. There were people whimpering all over. There were people injured all over.
The aircraft landing safely in Auckland, and tonight the Chilean-based airline saying it deeply regrets any inconvenience and discomfort this situation may have caused, saying the aircraft experienced a strong shake that's now under investigation.
The good news is that the black boxes will very quickly determine whether this was an aircraft malfunction or just clear air turbulence.
And David, while the airline has referred to this as a technical incident, they have not yet specified what exactly went wrong here. David?
Yeah, that's the question. What does that mean? Trevor Ault tonight. Trevor, thank you. We turn tonight to the stark warning on Capitol Hill today. America's top intelligence officials warning of the most troubling global threats right now, and the list was long. China and the potential influence over the U.S. election. The warning about Ukraine if the U.S. does not help, where Russia is now getting its weapons. And the danger here in the U.S. on our own border. Here's Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, the nation's top intelligence officials warning the U.S. faces unprecedented threats internationally and here at home. Concerns that adversaries like China and Russia might try to use the emerging technology of artificial intelligence against the U.S. in the upcoming presidential election.
The threat of malign actors exploiting these tools and technologies to undercut U.S. interests and democracy is particularly potent as voters go to the poll in more than 60 elections around the globe.
The FBI concerned about the potential that terrorists and others might try to come through a porous southern border.
A whole host of threats that emanate from the border, and some of them are criminal threats. We talked about fentanyl and violence. And then, of course, we have concerns that it could be a vulnerability that terrorist organizations could seek to exploit.
And tonight, the blunt assessment that Ukraine faces a critical window.
Ukraine's retreat from Avdiivka and their struggle to stave off further territorial losses in the past few weeks have exposed the erosion of Ukraine's military capabilities with the declining availability of external military aid. And without that assistance, it is hard to imagine how Ukraine will be able to maintain the extremely hard-fought advances it has made against the Russians, especially given the sustained surge in Russian ammunition production and purchases from North Korea and Iran.
And David, tonight the FBI director continues to warn that the terror threat is, quote, at a whole other level. And with the war still raging in Gaza, nothing has changed to diminish his concerns. David?
That list was extensive today. Pierre, thank you. Now to the race for the White House tonight, what former President Trump said just this morning about government entitlement programs, including Social Security. President Biden on the campaign trail in New Hampshire, pouncing. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, the stark difference between the two candidates on full display. President Biden seizing on new comments by Donald Trump. The former president seeming to suggest he would be open to cutting entitlements like Social Security and Medicare.
There is a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting and in terms of also the theft and the bad management of entitlements, tremendous bad management of entitlements. There's tremendous amounts of things and numbers of things you can do.
Biden tweeting out Trump's comments with these words, "Not on my watch," hitting them again on a campaign swing in New Hampshire.
Donald Trump said cuts to Social Security and Medicare are on the table again. I'm never going to allow that to happen.
Biden today unveiling his budget wish list, a $7.3 trillion plan highlighting his priorities for voters. It includes $4.7 billion for border security and a host of programs to help the middle class, including a $2,600 child tax credit, a new tax credit for first-time home buyers, and lowering the cost of prescription drugs, including insulin. To pay for it all, Biden wants to raise taxes on corporations and impose a 25% minimum tax on people worth more than $100 million. The president again drawing a sharp contrast with Donald Trump.
Do you really think the wealthy and big corporations need another $2 trillion tax breaks? Because that's what he wants to do.
Biden pledging that nobody who earns less than $400,000 will see their taxes go up.
Nobody, not a single cent. Nobody will pay a single penny more, and they haven't thus far. Folks, it's about fundamental fairness.
David, back to Medicare and Social Security. Donald Trump saying today there's a lot you can do in terms of entitlements, in terms of cutting. Now his campaign says what he was talking about was cutting waste, not the programs themselves. David.
Rachel Scott tonight. Rachel, thank you. This evening, the alarming images coming in from Haiti, the U.S. military evacuating some American personnel before the sun came up over the weekend. Tonight here, ABC's Matt Rivers, who has reported extensively on Haiti for us, with the troubling images now coming in.
Tonight, a gang-led rebellion putting Haiti on the brink of collapse. This elderly woman shot in the leg, desperate for help. And with the U.S. military helicoptering non-essential personnel out of the U.S. Embassy under the cover of darkness early Sunday, Secretary of State Antony Blinken traveling to Jamaica tonight for an emergency meeting with Caribbean leaders. It comes after coordinated gang attacks to overthrow the government of acting Prime Minister Ariel Henry. The man behind it all, a warlord called Barbecue, demanding the acting Prime Minister step down. We spoke to him over the weekend.
If Ariel Henry resigns, will you stop fighting?
Indeed, he says, if Henry resigns, we will automatically stop the attacks. Over the past year, we have reported on the growing unrest, and it has become increasingly difficult to get in, witnessing one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world.
So a nurse just weighed Marvin's here using this scale. He's about 9 kilos or 20 pounds. He's 4 years old, and yet he weighs the exact same amount as my son, who's only 10 months old.
Growing fears the situation will only get worse, with no end in sight to the violence.
David, the U.S. pushing Prime Minister Henry to cede power to a transition council that would bring new elections to Haiti, but so far Henry refusing to resign. David.
All right, Matt Rivers from Mexico City tonight. Matt, thank you. To London now, and to the royal photo of Princess Catherine and her children, suddenly recalled by photo agencies after they found the image had been doctored. Princess Kate then apologizing, but tonight Buckingham Palace still not releasing the original image, leading to even more questions about Princess Catherine and how she's doing after that sudden surgery. James Longman from London tonight.
This royal family photo was meant to calm speculation about the Princess of Wales's health. Tonight, that speculation in overdrive after Kate admitted she doctored the image. The Princess of Wales herself writing, "Like many amateur photographers, I do occasionally experiment with editing. I wanted to express my apologies for any confusion the family photograph we shared yesterday caused." Conspiracy theories have run rampant online in the wake of Kate's absence from public life after she underwent what the palace called planned abdominal surgery in January. She hadn't been seen publicly since Christmas until this paparazzi photo emerged last week, Kate and her mother at Windsor. The palace says this new photo, released to celebrate Mother's Day in the UK, was taken last week by Prince William at their home.
We've now obviously put that photograph out to try to quell all the speculation.
Leading international photo agencies pulling it from their websites. An AFP analysis pointing out clear inconsistencies. Perhaps the most glaring, Princess Charlotte's left hand and sleeve, partly erased. Charlotte's skirt waistband and hair at odd angles, as is the zipper on Kate's jacket. It doesn't appear to line up. Kate, by far the UK's most popular royal, was seen leaving Windsor Castle today for a private appointment in the car with her husband. Prince William later attending a major event without her.
Some observers think one way for the palace to resolve this would be to release the original photograph. But tonight, David, they're saying they will not do that, and no further update on Kate's health. David?
Let's just hope she's okay. James Longman tonight. James, thank you. Now to the tensions between Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Biden after Biden discussed what would be a red line for him. Matt Gutman from Israel.
Tonight, a growing rift between President Biden and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu after the president seemingly said an invasion into Rafah in the southern part of the Gaza Strip would be his red line.
It is a red line, but I'm never going to leave Israel. You cannot have 30,000 more Palestinians dead as a consequence.
Moments later, walking those comments back, saying Netanyahu's war was hurting Israel more than helping. For weeks, the White House has publicly urged Israel not to invade Rafah, where Hamas's remaining leaders and battalions are believed to be hiding among civilians without a plan to protect the more than 1 million displaced Gazans there. Netanyahu defiant, vowing to press on despite the president's concerns.
I have a red line. You know what the red line is? That October 7th doesn't happen again.
The leaders trading barbs as the holy month of Ramadan begins and as famine sets in. According to the UN, dozens, mostly children, have died from malnutrition, some like 12-year-old Mohammed clinging to life with severe dehydration and malnutrition.
And David, you recall after the president's State of the Union address last week, he was caught off mic saying he'd have a, quote, come to Jesus talk with Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu. Today he said he hasn't yet had that conversation, but left the option on the table. David.
All right, Matt, thank you. When we come back here in the U.S. tonight, the boater attacked by a crocodile, airlifted to the hospital. There's word on his condition coming in. Caitlin Clark and her new triumph tonight, and the Oscars and what we didn't know about Ken's song. Tonight, there's an investigation underway in South Florida after an apparent crocodile attack inside Everglades National Park. A 68-year-old boater was airlifted to Miami's hospital, treated for a cut on his leg. Authorities say the man was trying to swim to shore after his boat had capsized. He's expected to be okay. When we come back tonight, basketball star Caitlin Clark hits another milestone tonight, and the Oscars and what few knew about Ken's song. To the Index, and Caitlin Clark does it again, helping to lead her Iowa Hawkeyes to their third consecutive Big Ten title and a ticket to the Big Dance, defeating Nebraska 89-87 in overtime. Clark with 34 points. When we come back, Oscars big night and the famous dog from the movie and how they pulled off the dog and all of that clapping.
ABC World News Tonight with David Muir, sponsored by Pacific Life, creating financial security for more than 150 years.
From Best Picture to the dog clapping to Ken's song that almost didn't make the movie. The 96th Academy Awards and the big winner.
Oppenheimer.
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 Oppenheimer winning 7 Oscars, including Best Picture.
Cillian Murphy.
Cillian Murphy winning Best Actor for his portrayal of Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb.
For better or for worse, we're all living in Oppenheimer's world, so I would really like to dedicate this to the peacemakers everywhere.
Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. nominated twice before with his first Oscar win for Best Supporting Actor in Oppenheimer.
I'd like to thank my terrible childhood and the Academy in that order.
Divine.
And Divine Joy Randolph waiting for Best Supporting Actress in The Holdovers.
You know he flourished here.
Yes. No, he was a great kid. I had him one semester. Very insightful.
He hated you. For so long, I've always wanted to be different. And now I realize I just need to be myself.
Emma Stone.
Winning Best Actress, Emma Stone for Poor Things.
Most importantly, my daughter, who's going to be 3 in 3 days and has turned our lives technicolor. I love you bigger than the whole sky, my girl.
There were the surprises.
Messi,
the border collie from Anatomy of a Fall, clapping for the winners. And this is how it was done. Actor Ryan Gosling singing I'm Just Ken with 62 other Kens. Margot Robbie, director Greta Gerwig dancing too. And tonight, the song's co-writer and producer revealing that song almost didn't make the final cut of the movie. But director Greta Gerwig was determined. It was quite a night. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.